Those two are not in the budget. Thanksgiving parade is not. If we wanted it, I can tell you that the Thanksgiving parade, what we have found, the Thanksgiving parade comes at a cost of $117,665. And so if we want to add that in, we need to identify some reductions in that amount. And the 4th of July celebration is $64,744. That's been the cost. And so that would mean adding an additional almost $200,000 to the budget. And this is why I want to have the conversation, because I have all of these events listed. And if there are events that are required that the council wants to see, then those are things that we will consider in the budget and for the first budget. So am I understanding that Thanksgiving parade and 4th of July, you'd like that to be back in the budget?
I'm just using those as examples. I think those are two of our, most known events. I'm not saying that and that only. I'm from the old days when we used to have corporate underwriting of events like this and volunteer organizations that put parade together, for instance. Over the years, we've gone to a point where the city just writes a check for everything. I'd be open to a scaled back version of these events that, include corporate underwriting, to maybe make it a little bit more even.
So on the events, we identified that the cost of the events have been $812,612.
You're not going to get any argument from me that we need to cut that stuff back. Here's the vibe that I'm getting from this budget. Everybody suck it up for the next 2 years. You're not going to get anything. No events, no facilities, nothing. Take this bitter pill and swallow it. That's what I'm getting the vibe from. And I think we need to get a little more creative with finding ways to do certain things rather than just tell everybody, nothing, COVID. So that's a concern I have. I want to turn to the staff COLAs that are contractually owed. Why don't we renegotiate that? Or
So
why don't we lay off more?
We are in the 3rd year of that negotiations. We did speak to council. We did speak to council about that. In order to open that back up, we would need to declare a financial emergency.
Well, I mean, that
has a lot of implications for the city. I mean, consider the fact that currently that the state has already halted the 2 loans for these really important infrastructure projects. We would be putting ourselves at more risk for additional grants. And what I'm talking to you about today presents a way, for you to get some projects underway, to get a portion of our debt dealt with, and to balance the budget. I would not say that this is a budget that says nothing and stop, but the reality is how many events have we had in the last 4 months? We've turned them virtual. I'm not saying you can't do something online for a virtual parade, but we don't have $117,000 to spend on one singular event this year. And that's factual. But
no argument there. No argument there. No argument there.
The conversation is about what's important to the council in terms of what they want to see in terms of that. But I'm being very forward to let you know what that cost is to the city. But what I've worked on with you right now is an option to balance this budget, pay a portion down of the debt, and still have some monies available to finish some of the signature projects, and to put us in a position for a plan forward in the next 2 years to continue. And it is requiring a bit of sacrifice. That I can say. Is it cutting everything out? Absolutely not. But it is requiring to some level some sacrifice. It includes cutting of positions. It includes, going back and charging what we're supposed to charge. And it's also including making sure that we prioritize the infrastructure. We get calls on a daily basis about water, about infrastructure, about sidewalks, about swales. of which we are running out of money to fix. That is the reality, that we are running out of that money to fix.
Right.
So
Like I
this
say,
budget helps you
I'm
do
going
all
to
the things.
I'm going to stop my questions right there. Clearly, I got your memo. We just got this memo with all this detail within about the last 48 hours, maybe 72 hours. So I wanted to hear your presentation, have a chance to digest it. We'll have lots of conversations before the first budget hearing, so maybe I can get a better understanding of what you're looking to do. But I'm not really thrilled with what. Sorry, one of my cats tried to jump in. I'm not really thrilled with what I'm hearing, because I'm hearing staff gets big raises and the public pays more taxes.
Well, I think the staff is getting COLA and merits that the council voted for 3 years ago.
Right.
And
3 years.
And I have not, and in this budget, all of the non-bargaining staff are not receiving their. Unfortunately, I have been constrained by the contract that was agreed to and signed prior to my arrival. So this is the constraint that I am facing. So right now, what I've done is I have cut merit for all of the non-bargaining. That is what is within my control based on the agreement that was done between the union and the council prior to my arrival.
Right. I'm not going to put the blame on 3 years ago council and just say, well, we can't do anything more because that's the way it was 3 years ago. I'm ready to put all cards on the table. Like I said, and I'm sorry to keep coming back to parks, but that's the easiest one to understand. If you've got 20 people in the parks department and you're not doing much of anything, why do you still need 20 people in the parks department? That's a question I'll have for you individually later on. So, Mr. Mayor, thank you for letting me ask questions.
Thank you very much. Vice Mayor Desulme.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you to you and to my colleagues who went prior to me. I do have a couple of questions, but I want to make a couple of statements before I go into this budget. First and foremost, Madam Manager, we understand this is extremely hard because you came in, and I understand what you're trying to do. And you came in, you inherited something that was not something of your fault, but this is truly, and I really don't know what would have happened if you did not come on board in terms of, because I am stunned. I am stunned on different levels, because what you are saying, although we kind of knew some of it, but it wasn't put down on paper like that. So there's a lot of people, in terms of folks who did not act in the best interest of the city, who I don't feel like they need to be in the city. Because as elected official, a lot of us, we really trust the staff in a lot of decisions. When they tell us, you know, this is good, and it looks like this is good in their pockets. And I totally agree with Councilman Galvin. And I know you're trying to see what can be done, but you know, the frustration is here. And yes, I am to be blamed, because I guess I am to be blamed for trusting staff for doing, you know, because that's what I thought I was supposed to do. That's number one. This is really, really puzzling in terms of it's just completely mismanagement for the past few years, because but the chicken are coming to roost, and it's not going to look good. I do understand your recommendations, but this is going to be a little bit more serious in terms of, I don't think, I do agree with Councilman Keys. We come up to a point where the people might have to pay something for more. However, they pay more to pay COLA, to pay all of these things, and that's the problem. So since contractually we have to do what we got to do, but I think it's going to be very brutal in terms of the amount of position that needs to be that needs to be gone. If this is COVID, you have departments, and I'm not going exactly into one department. I don't know what services they are giving the resident, and we don't want to go down that route. So I think we need to look at each department and figure out, do we need to put the department on hold? Do we need to cut the department seriously? I mean, we're going to be a year almost with nothing. So if it's, hey, we got to temporarily do this and do what we got to do. But I don't think the priorities that we put forward in terms of a park, I know one of my colleagues definitely talked about that we're gonna have to get what we get. So if we need to scale down the city, and I understand you say 28 positions, 28 maybe need to be 100. We need to look this is tough, and this is not your doing, but this is the result of mismanagement over the past few years that comes to this. So we really need to look at what are the department, what's working, because people are not going out, if we're not having summer camp, if people are not going to City Hall to do. So what services, if we're supposed to enhance the lives of people, because the Thanksgiving Day Parade was one, the 4th of July was one. So I don't think we need to, because of COVID, we may need to scale down, but in terms of cutting them out, because, you know, we gotta, it has to be another way. And if we have to scale down to half staff within the city, I thought that's what we were, because the city, from what I was told, I'm thinking that City Hall is not functioning 100%. So I thought if part-time is gone, then we got to do what we got to do to have the funds that's needed. Now, going back to, so those are the statements that I have. So in terms of the questions, 14.7 million deficit as of now, and you won't be able to balance the budget unless another 6.1 that you're looking for us to give you, or you have identified that within what you propose?
So within the budget proposal, I was unable to get down to that number. So what we can do, there's the $5 million that we actually have to, that we have set in by ordinance to reserve with a 4/5 vote. We can use that in the budget. And we haven't been having reserves over the last few years because they've been kind of marked as a carryover and we've been using them. So if we were to use that, then I would need to be identifying another $1.1 million in cuts. And part of this discussion is, you know, where that is. What I'm hearing from Councilman Galvin and I'm hearing from yourself is go back and look at more cuts in terms of positions for that additional $1.1 million.
I mean,
so
if you don't feel comfortable at looking at it, it's something that we may have to do. I mean, I'm just putting it out. I mean, we're going to have to do what we got to do. But he needs a park. And the fact that a budget could come or a suggestion, we have a food pantry. And that's one of the things. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and I see that it's roughly funded. I mean, and then we were going after the governor because the governor cut money that Senator Pizzo and Representative Dottie requested for us, and we were like going crazy. We're like, how could he cut a pantry in the middle of a pandemic? Although he didn't cut pantries in different areas that look differently.
Alex, can I say just something?
Yes, sir.
Give me a second. You said Senator Pizzo and State Representative Dottie Joseph, but he was State Representative Dottie Joseph and Senator Oscar Brennan was the co-sponsor of the bill.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so we have identified 75,000 because last year the cost of the food pantry, based on the agreement that we had with the not-for-profit, which is Feeding South Florida, that was $50,000, and we also estimate that there's an additional $25,000 from Waste Pro. And so we did not reduce it from last year, but that was another 125,000 that we need to identify.
No,
And-
I know, but I'm saying the fact that your administration even put that on paper, I'm criticizing that. That is such a disconnect from the way you guys are looking at things. The public to us, if we say we service them, like what do we service them? What is it that you guys think you guys help the residents do in this middle of this pandemic? They send their bills in if they don't have to go to City Hall. So we are, and I'm okay because we need to increase the thing. But again, it seems like we're doing it to cut down on things that mismanagement did, but also to pay the $900,000 merit and all of this for staff. So my question is, if our cost of staffing, I don't know what that is, if that's causing part of the issue in terms of us delivering services, doing a park, then we really need to look what we need to look. We are at a point right now, I feel that I need to be a little bit conservative in terms of what works for the resident. How many people do we need to function the city that's, that's critical? Because that's what you're telling us right now. We need to be in a critical stage. And I don't know if 28 people, with you struggling like that, it needs to be where we really, really and making a dent in the cut. And it's gonna be worse next year when you have if we have to renegotiate these contracts.
So I wanted to clarify something, Councilman. In terms of the food pantry, as you know, if you can note, it's on a list as project priorities. So that tells us that we may not have the funding, but we need to find the fund, that these are things that we have identified that need to be found for. So I am giving you upfront information about our priorities and where we still have to find space for them, so that this discussion was robust enough to say, okay, we need to do that. So I want you to know that that was considered a priority on this list.
I just and I correct myself and I apologize for that. But again, I think we need to really look at really making a dent in terms of the what we need to do for you to get what needed to get in order for us to balance the budget. In terms of the $5 fee, which is $60 a year for the service fee, what is that service fee for?
So there are costs to us actually collecting that, but we also have to realize that we still have to do infrastructure work. And so we've been losing that fund for a long time, and we haven't had anything left there. But because the number that we put without the convenience fee, without the service fee, only pays exactly what that cost is, there are costs associated with actually providing that service.
Because if we're gonna increase their fees and decrease services, which is what we're doing in terms of some of that, if that's something that we could reduce, we already said we're gonna increase it. I mean, we really are. Is it for us, the city, or for Waste Pro? The service fee.
The city. It's for the city, because what that becomes, what we need to do to respond to our residents.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't want to go into what when you say respond to our residents, because they're not getting the service. But Councilwoman Keys mentioned something. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're open to doing some reduction there. So we can also present options, and we'll present them when we present the budget for an option, probably a lower number, at least to listen to, also to take into account your comments as well as the comments of Councilman Galvin on that in terms of piecemeal on the increase. So we will present something.
You mentioned in terms of the CRA perhaps the TIF, you know, that is something we need to explore a little bit, but I think just for once, because the CRA is doing what they need to do, but in terms of them bailing us out too much, again, I would feel very comfortable in doing anything that needed to be done on behalf of this great city. But the fact that we are trying to do this to give more raises and more COLA and this, that's not really sitting right with me, and that's why I have the problem with all this. And I don't think nobody who made these decisions should be in the city, because this is crazy. This is really, really, really outrageous when you think about this. We're in the middle of a pandemic when we should be trying to reduce services, but we're gonna have to increase these people stuff because of bad decisions that somebody made in management. That's not too good. So I'm not really, you know, the 1 day, the people giving 1 day, how much money is that? 1 day a month, how much is that?
That furlough is about $1 million, roughly.
So right now, they're giving two furloughs a day, a
Been
month.
2 furlough days a month, and okay. The budget assumption is to bring that to 1 furlough day a month.
Yes. Let me ask you this though. The building where the Red Gardens and all those things that we get into, and this is maybe for the attorney. Is he on here? Is the attorney here?
I don't know what Jeff should be.
I believe he's here.
Is he on this call or is he here?
1 second.
Okay.
Yes, sir. They had me muted. I'm here.
Okay, sir. Quick question. The buildings that we had for the Red Gardens, that $18,000, whatever those amount were, can we? This is, since we are at a level where we need to do what we got to do. Is there a way that we could look of getting out of these things, because this is not good? I mean, legally, can we renegotiate?
Yeah, there's always a way. Yes, there's always a way to terminate the lease. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think.
Can I point out, Councilman Desmond, if I can point out that the RFP for that property went out on August 17th, this past Monday. So we did put out the RFP based on the last conversation to see if we would find someone that would want to utilize both of those properties on the leases. If that were to happen, that would be a savings in our budget. If those went out and we had, if we found a vendor or someone to use it and to manage it, that would be a reduction in our budget.
Yeah, but would they be incurring the $18,000 for that building, or is just the Red Garden?
No, they would be incurring everything.
Okay. And that would be fine. But I'm just saying, I think right now, since we're looking at everything on the table, and also in terms of the COLA, and not the COLA, the days, the employees agreed up until September. So this would be something that we will have to go back and ask them if we were to go with the 1 day.
So yes, it was. And just so that of note, the current furloughs that we're here now were implemented by administration. They were not willing to open up the conversations, and we have just gone forward. So that would be another issue that would come up. I would rather defer to the attorney in terms of the consequences of that. But considering the situation that we were in with COVID, the administration had moved forward with those furloughs. In this case, we would be presenting that currently for the 1 day a month.
Okay. So you will have to go back and ask the unions again.
Yes.
I think we would, yes.
Okay. Well, when is their negotiation? And I don't like the idea, and I know it's very unfair that the non-bargaining are not getting nothing, but it is what it is. Since that's the very famous phrase now going around, but that's not good at all. That's why I said if we could take the furlough days off and then just do something that's worse. I mean, you have to get rid of folks, reduce the city, and yeah. I mean, you know, do it if you present to us, or if you do a scenario where we do reduce the city, just we're talking about this year because of what is happening, there would be some saving, correct?
Well, what I have in here for the savings, we are reducing. We're going to be reducing by
Okay, but
108
Ms.
positions.
Teresa, you said to us the 28 positions that you reduce, it wasn't enough because you're telling us all of these things not happening, so you need more money.
Those are filled positions, and then we've cut every vacant funded position.
Okay, you get rid of them. What
So
I'm
we've
saying, how much money would you need now where we would not be sitting here where we feel like this is the worst thing happening? How much money would you need if you need to get where you need to get where you would be comfortable?
Well, based on the conversations that we're having, there would be a vote for the 4/5. That would be the $5 million reserve, and we would need to identify an additional $3 million.
Right. To use the reserve?
3 million.
3 million. Okay, so
If
let's
you
just
vote
say
for the reserve,
if we don't do that, let's just say you don't have those votes. So you got 3 million, and then what?
no,
How
if
much
we don't
more
have
do
the
you?
votes, we have 6.1 right now. If we do not have that vote, we have 6.1.
Perfect. Okay, so you need
Plus
6.1 million.
120. Yeah.
Did that include some of I think you probably need to talk to the council people individually and the mayor for that 6.1 million and whatever. Now, if we say to you, cut where we will increase the people thing. I agree with that. But we said we're increasing that, so you get would that be $1 million off the 6.1?
No, and this is, and we're going to get into it. I think this next conversation is going to be very tough because safety has been, and it was marked as one of the top priorities of this council. And currently, the budget is 50% public safety. And so.
Listen, yeah, we got that. We're not saying we're not there yet. What I'm saying, we understand it's 50. We're not there. What I'm saying to you, 6.1, and talk to Councilman Galvin, see what he definitely need. So you will have a global number saying this is what we need. I would like to know that so that when we do go into the budget, so that we will know, okay, these are the priority. This is your recommendation. I think I got your recommendation. I don't think it's lending very well in terms of what needs to be done. If we cannot combine positions or do something, I just feel like we got to do something where we're really making a something. Because I feel like right now it's like 2 years, maybe 2 years when I'm getting ready to go off the council, I may be able to get a normal budget. That's if we don't go into another contract where the COLA is $1 million and this and that. Because you said in part of the presentation, the people paying their bills is us paying the bills contributed $4 million to the deficit, which I agree. However, they did not mention the COLA and everything that we give that gets almost $5 million that they contribute also. So that's very unfair. Yes, we're giving the residents that, and we say we're gonna charge the residents. Well, at least I'm saying I'm okay with it because we're gonna have to. It's a big bullet I don't want to do. But if I'm doing that, and that's what I'm saying, I have to see where the people that we are doing it, there's some stuff coming. Because if we're gonna have a year of not normal stuff happening, then if we need to do what we got to do, then we got to do what we got to do. And I'm not saying the police, none of that. There's other departments, there's other other things that we could look at and look at everything in total. Eventually we'll get there, but everything has to public works, every department.
So let me talk about that for a bit in terms of what we looked at when we looked at the cuts, okay? We have looked at all the different departments in terms of cutting. Please know that there is a constraint in the amount that you can cut when you talk about public works, because we are obligated to spend what we spend in supporting our general fund transportation of about a little bit over $1 million. We have to spend that in order to get those transportation surtax funds. That is the agreement that we have with the county. So many of the public works, maybe that were working in kind of water areas, they could go to that fund, but the others, you have to keep that same level of general fund support, or we will lose a huge source of our funding, which is that transportation surtax funding. So when you come to public works, we have gotten to the point where we have just enough to keep up and make sure that we made with that so that we could get that funding. And that's one of our major departments, and we talked about this at our retreat. One of the other major departments is police, and it's to be said, police made significant number of cuts in many areas in order to get to this number. When you look at it, their number is about the same as it would have been, but because of the increases, what we've cut takes us back to the same number, and it's about 50% of the budget. We have cut down for police that we will have 10 officers less on the street than we had in 2017 when we were losing the accreditation. So the fact is that if we start to cut places where we have the space, you're going to lose in the public safety area. And we go to the other portion, these 25 positions, they represent these other areas from the departments, the 28 positions. And that's also included the additional positions that were all vacant and funded. So in that sense, there would be open positions to move forward to or to move into. Additionally, we're getting rid of 107 part-timers as well that are gone out of the budget. So it's that total amount that we're already losing a total of about 150 total.
No, the part-time we already have. I'm not talking about the part-time people, and I feel so bad because they were, we cutting the people that's not really getting insurance and all these and all that. But that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, you saying police is one that I understand the 50, but you got building, since it's moving, you can't cut from building.
Cutting from building does not do anything for our general fund debt.
Listen, what
So
do you?
There's nothing. So even if I cut from building
Wait.
brings in.
Wait. What I'm saying is, we're gonna look at every department, and you cannot tell me if you're cutting people that it doesn't do. You're not saving money. You're saying if you cut from, you got building, and I'm not talking about police. You already said what you got to say about police and public works. You got building department. You got code enforcement. You got CPND. You got finance. You have technology, IT. You got your library, MOCA. Well, MOCA we can't really do much. We already reduced personnel, purchasing, risk management, your office, our office. So what I'm saying is right now, we need to look at everything.
And our cuts this year represent all of the offices that you spoke about. Our cuts this year represent all of them.
Okay.
And then if I can go into talk about building, I want to make this very clear so it's understood.
Well, let me say this. I would prefer
Every cut from building will not fix the general fund.
Ms. Theralis, I would prefer you do that with us privately. And then we will, in terms of that, I'm just putting it out there. I'm not going, you said something about the other departments, and I don't want to get into the back and forth. You just presented something. I'm just telling you how I taking it. I'm not really liking it. Again, you giving us recommendation, we do what we have to do. I'm asking you questions based on what I'm thinking. Because you saying one thing, You saying if we do cut more, it doesn't really help you?
So building is an enterprise fund.
Okay, okay.
This,
Then building
this
is
deficit, yeah, this deficit is a general fund deficit. So
no,
even
but
if
we're in general fund now. What and they moving to enterprise?
yes, so we moved all of those into the enterprise fund, so they're getting paid out of the enterprise fund. So every position
already
is no longer, they're already out of our general fund. So this budget takes
okay,
them
so
out
take them out.
for
We
any
can't-
building, and that's why I'm saying that. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
There are no building employees in this general fund budget. They are being paid specifically by building themselves.
Gotcha.
That's what
Okay.
I cut. It would
I
not.
thought it was going
Yeah.
to be, I thought we were moving them when the passage of the budget. I did not know that they were already moved, whatever the case is. And they're already understaffed anyhow, but I'm just giving you an example. I'm not targeting one particular department. What I'm just saying is that if the residents, you're not getting that many residents, or we're not giving services because there's no summer camp. So there's a lot of things that there's not. So that's what I'm saying. So what is making our thing so high if it's not staffing?
No,
Because
I think what we need to recognize is that this is actually focusing on the low revenues. The difference between what we expect, if this wasn't for COVID, we would be talking about revenues in the number of 74 million, something of that sort, 70 million. And now because of that, we're at 59. So I think we are reducing expenses. The effect of COVID is doubling. So let's say we didn't have COVID, we would still be making cuts, but you would see more of an effect in terms of fixing the gap. One of the things that are really stressing this budget is because we would normally expect for this to be a $70 million budget when it comes to revenues. And now we're moving towards a budget that's a $60 million budget as well. So there's two factors here. There's expenses that have increased over the last few years. And yes, a portion of it is based on the contracts with the employees. Yes, because every year with merits, the expenses go up. Expenses in a lot of areas have gone up, but couple that with the loss of revenues, and that's where we are today. So it's both things that are affecting. If you look at what our budget next year will be 59 million, and our adopted budget for fiscal year 20 was actually 74 million. And now we're not expected to have those revenues. 5.5 is out because of building, and building is taking on all the employees from building from the enterprise fund. In addition to all of these additional revenues we're losing. So if we weren't losing revenues on top of the expenses, we would be in a better position.
to give out more raises to the employee. So okay, I think I'm done. Thank you, madam.
Councilwoman Marie-Estime Irvin.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, City Administration, Madam City Manager, for putting this together. I know this is tough. So I'm not going to repeat some of the sentiments that my colleagues already repeated, but maybe one or two that I wanted to highlight. I know that this year we're going to have to tighten our belt, but I think we need to get creative, and just outside of tightening our belt, we need to get creative. So that's that. So Councilman Galvin, I agree with you. If this pandemic flattens by Thanksgiving, maybe we should get a corporation to underwrite on this parade if that's the direction that we want to go, that we'd like to go. I also am in agreement with you, Councilman Vice Mayor Alex Ezume, that in terms of the service fee, that the proposed $5, okay, I'm glad to hear that there's some wiggle room there to negotiate that. Instead of the $5, maybe we can bring it down to $2.50. I don't know. But I think, my colleagues, I'm just saying that it's going to be tight. We're going to do what we have to do. We got to get creative. Let's start talking to Solomia. Let's start seeing who wants to buy land. Let's start, doing what we need to do to increase the revenue while we're tightening our belts and trying to figure all of this out. Question for you, Madam Manager, in terms of, because I have the same concern about that property that we are leasing for 14 years that's associated with the Red Garden. So I know that you mentioned that there's an RFP that's out there. If that person or that whoever it is agrees, will we get back that 8 months that we've put out there that we didn't even utilize those dollars? Is that a part of that agreement? Is there somewhere where we can recoup those dollars?
I think the revenues, because what we have is a minimum guarantee that we've requested, also a portion of the revenues, of the gross revenues. And so I think within time you would make that up. So in our RFP, there's a minimum guarantee that covers both of the leases and also a percentage of gross revenues from any of the events that they have there.
Right.
So it should cover it. If it came, it may, add additional, especially with the revenues, and probably covers the time from before and possibly, additional costs that went into it. So I do think that if we can get someone based on what was detailed in the RFP, we could make up on that. And I just wanted to make a comment in terms of the creative solutions in selling land. And I want to say that we have been using land sales to cover these budgets. And that is why the next budgets become an issue and become a deficit, because any land sale is a one-time revenue. I think, so here, in order to have financial stability, the practice of balancing our budget with one-time revenues has to slow down and eventually stop. But I do think that
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
So we can use it for another project. I think
Right.
let's say
I am not suggesting that be the major or the sole way of revenues. I'm also encouraging us, us, city administration and our influence as elected official, to attract businesses to come to our cities and to do what we need to do. And the ones that haven't pulled permit yet, and to just use whatever creative means of increasing revenues. And I'm not solely basing that on the land sale. Just wanted to.
And I want to say that in one of my priorities, I wrote in development opportunities. I have been taking the time to speak with developers and see what we can do along the city in order to grow it. But as you know, we're talking from July to October, and we have to put in a budget. So when we get development opportunities, we see the fruits of those development opportunities over the next year. In fact, if we look at this mid-year and we take advantage of development opportunities, we may be looking at adjustments that are more positive for the city. But in terms of the budget that I presented to you coming in and looking at this, at where we are today and how we need to make sure that we go into October 1 sound and balanced, that's what's being presented. But I have outlined that one of my major priorities is for development opportunities.
Okay, that's all that I have to say. I'm sure we're going to have more private conversation and get into a little bit more details. But I'm willing to tighten up the belt, but and do what we need to do for our city.
Thank you very much, Madam City Manager. I have a question for you. In the presentation, you talked about the deficit for this year. You didn't talk about the $14.7 million deficit from the last budget.
So one of the assumptions going into this budget is that we would pay $1 million towards reducing that deficit, and also another $1 million to the water and sewer fund, which would be a total $2 million towards the deficit. So if this budget were to be in place, we were working to, and we could pay out these additional deficits with a portion of the new sales that are coming in. The expectation is that we would go into the end of the next deficit as around a negative 12 million, rather than increasing but coming down. So will it go down as much as we would like to go? No, but it would be on a downward trend. If we did that, that would also leave that available about $7 million approximately to start putting towards the project priorities that are listed in the presentation.
Yeah, but my question, and I understand that's mean you're gonna budget $1 million toward the deficit per year, right?
Yeah, well, it'd be 2 million total, yes.
For the general fund, $1 million. And
Yeah.
for the enterprise fund, how much money do you owe the enterprise fund?
The enterprise fund number is about, I think that it was like 14 because we borrowed from it and put it in there. So what we would be doing is it's refilling it. So both ways. The reason why I put 1 million towards water and sewer is because there's also like a cash deficit.
Before we get to the cash deficit, $1 million toward the enterprise fund for how long? What is the total amount that we owe the enterprise fund?
The 14 million is the total that we owe the enterprise fund. We've taken all of the monies that are in the debt, and we owe them the $14 million.
Okay, you're telling me that in a presentation that was done by the previous administration, or in the CARFA, that said you take $6.6 or $7.2 million toward the enterprise fund. That's mean, did you change that?
What are you referring to?
When we see the $10.7 million, right? A report from the administration, the previous administration stated that they take $7.2 million to pay back the enterprise fund.
Yes, so that was done before I came here, and if you take that that CAFA presentation did not take into account the budget situation. Because if we did not have a budget deficit, then yes, you could have paid that, but it did not. In fact, I have asked for finance to provide an updated, we need to look at that because they have to be taken into account together. I can only pay down what I have left after I've spent money. And that's one of the main issues that I found when I came here, which is different from what the expectation is. I can't pay down debt if I have nothing left at the end in my account. And that's what we're faced with. And so now at this budget, I'm taking the beginning of the budget and saying, we're putting $2 million aside. So it goes there. And yes, it leaves us with that deficit, but we're paying it out with some of the portion of the next land sale that's coming in. So that way, if we clear out, if we can balance this year and balance next year, then what we actually put towards the deficit reduces it. What seems to have been happening, and I don't want to speak for the previous, but what seems to be happening is, yes, we take it, we put it in and we take it back. We put it in and we take it back. But if you end up the year in a deficit, you can't actually really pay back. And that's why year after year, you went from an $8 million deficit to a $14 million deficit. So if I don't pay anything towards what we're going to finish up this year, the number's going to go to 16. And that's where we're at. And so I can't speak to the previous presentation. I am working on a different estimate for where we will be once we have made a true estimate of what we can pay. This budget that I'm presenting, that I will be presenting, has the expectation that 2 million will bring that down.
When we'll bring the deficit on both accounts. Okay.
Yeah. If we had gotten all the revenues, that we lost, we probably would have been able to pay that in. But we have to factor in the $10.3 million in lost revenues that we also did not receive. So any estimate of where we're going to be in a budget deficit needs to take into account our year end, how we're going to actually end the year. And we know that we're going to end the year down with $10.3 million less in revenue. So the presentation that was done before COVID did not take into account those additional loss of revenues as well.
Are you gonna did you ask the firm that did the CAFR to update the report?
Well, I think the CAFR report for that year is done. When you see the next year, we'll see that through here. We are budgeting to make sure that that's where we get to the end. Each CAFR comes by the end of the year. So you'll get a CAFR for this end year for the following year. What's happening is when I'm creating this budget, I'm also thinking, what is the next year's end going to look like in September 2020 when we're getting that CAFR? Because remember, the CAFR presentation that you got ends from 2019.
Yeah, okay.
So now I have to get to the end of this year, 2020, and then I would see it next year where we are.
Okay, you present a budget where you recommend that can I finish?
No, I want to understand the question that you asked. I don't know if you understand it. I didn't understand it. May I, if I'm not mistaken, did you ask, apparently the CAFR didn't take account
I know what question.
some dollars. And but I didn't get that you said that they're going to update that, or
because the presentation would have taken into account what you expected as the full revenues. So when they say, oh, you can pay this at the end, you have to come in with all of those revenues at the end of this year in order to get into that schedule of paying down the actual debt.
That's been the thing. If you pay the debt, the $14.3 million, you minus zero in your bank account. That's mean you out of cash, and that's when you cannot pay anything, employees and anything. That's why we have to, whatever it is. But the budget that you present, been presented before us, you are going to raise tax, but at the same time, cut service. I don't know how you're gonna get full fifth of the
when
vote.
You say services, which services?
But you're not gonna get me if you're gonna raise tax and cut basic service. I'm gonna give you a quick example. You ask me to raise tax, but at the same time, you don't have money for food for the people in need. I'm thinking, how are you gonna get a budget like that passed for me if I don't see money for a food pantry, money for basic thing, if I don't see money at least for signature event like the Thanksgiving parade, if we can happen 4th of July, those two basic things, I don't know how you're gonna get 4/5 of the vote.
So when you refer to services, we're not cutting all of our services for public infrastructure, utilities. We've cutting staff, but we are expecting to keep those services. In terms of
infrastructure, I understand that. But if you cannot feed the people in need, infrastructure comes second. Feeding the people in need comes first for me. We do understand we need to upgrade our infrastructure. We understand that. But social service, that's directly gonna affect the resident, the people in need. That's mean if you're gonna ask me to do the sacrifice of raising taxes, at least the basic service to the residents, I gotta see it in the budget. That's mean
so there is no request to raise taxes. We're asking to raise fees for services that are actually received.
Okay, I'm not trying to be politically correct. It's raising taxes for me. I understand they're going to pay for the service, okay. But you have to think about that. And while you raising tax, cutting service, and you giving raise,
Okay. Well, as I
You're
discussed,
telling me that it's like you're gonna shut down half of park and recreation services while you're gonna keep almost 90% of the employees.
so I think we talked about the uncertainty of parks and recreation services. That would not be something that the administration is just deciding to cut, but COVID is really directing what we're able to open back up and what we're able to offer. We are prepared to offer those, and we do keep many of the facilities open at limited capacity as we can. That's based on the regulations. What I am hearing today is
You're
that
doing reduction in services. I have to see it in administration also. That's what I understand that. But I got to see it both ways. But if you have 100 employees that doing 50% less work, you cut in service, but everybody's still getting a paycheck. And on top of that, you're raising taxes. That's been, that's my opinion. That's mean we can discuss that after. And because the point of having a workshop is to understand what everybody want, what we think about the budget. I think the meaning of this workshop. That's mean you got to go back and see what needs to be done in order to present a balanced budget. But I have to thank you for being fair and honest to us, to tell us exactly where we are. That means we're happy for that. And you see what everybody wants, how we think the budget should look like. And hopefully, you review it and give us something to digest. I think that will come. But you asked me, there's a question that I have. How come we have a $14 million deficit and you said you need 4/5 of the vote in order to use the reserve when there is no reserve?
Okay, we have, in terms of our monies that come in terms of revenues, we have an ordinance that requires us to take that 5 million and put it aside and not use it as part of the budget.
Oh, okay.
That's the money that I'm saying, I need a forfeit vote
in order
so
for
that
you
it can be used as part of the budget, yes.
Not to put it in reserve.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So that money, and I don't want to use the word reserve. Do we have anything left there right now?
No.
So we don't.
No.
No. Okay. So that's what I'm saying. It's a lot of lies. So
what she's trying to say, it's whatever coming in by ordinance to be put aside.
I know, but what I'm saying is, so that means that, Mr. Mayor, we should have had $5 million aside from last time.
I understand.
Okay, so and we kept on asking. They say, yeah, we do have it. So now she's saying it's a lie. We don't have nothing. So that's what because when she asked the 3 million, I'm like, well, if we already have 5, and I'm okay with giving you 3, if 2 is going to the 5 that we have, which will be 7 in reserve. But you said we have nothing in reserve. So we will have 2 million in reserve under your plan.
Well, under my plan, you will pay down the debt by 2 million.
So what would we have in reserve? Nothing?
Oh, no, because we would have to use that reserve. I'd have to build that up in a following year in order to pay down. Now, remember that there's still that $7 million left from this sale coming in that we can have discussions about to what extent we want to reserve that or we want to use for some of the projects. And that's why I put the project priorities also on there to talk about that. So while this budget may not seem to be the ideal budget for everyone, what it does is it takes into account the reality of this of where we are. And I've heard that I think that what's being asked is that we come back with some recommendations to cut more in terms of our operations and staffing, and that you've asked to add back in special events. and that you would like to see
Some special
funding for the pantry.
No, we don't. We didn't say add special event. We're talking about signature event crucial for the city. It's like we're talking about specific 4th of July and Thanksgiving parade.
I agree, Mr. Mayor. I think
Special
it's
event.
unfair to characterize that we just asked for special events to be returned. That's a lightning rod term we use in this community, and that's a false interpretation.
Yeah, we said some of the events that we can that we need to make sure we look and whatever the case is. But again, you're gonna have to get that money by cutting, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, if we are set, thank you very much.
No, Mr. Mayor, just one thing I want to clarify. I don't have nothing on that priority list, Madam Manager. I just want to be clear because you said I don't have nothing on there, but that's fine. And I understand.
I don't have nothing.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying.
Well, I have the P3. It's not funded right now, and the pantry is also on there.
No, the P3 is something that I was looking at the CRA doing, and if we're doing a public-private partnership, the CRA maybe with some other, endeavor. It's something that could be not in this year. I never looked at the P3 being something being done in this year. So yeah, that's something that
I have the pantry, and I've heard loud and clear that needs to be fully funded. Is there an additional?
That's not me.
Another thing.
And the social services, I've heard that social services is a priority.
Madam City Manager, and also in your presentation, in your budget, you have about $1 million for bonus and merit for the employees. Is that correct?
Yes, those are the contractual bonus and merits that we are required by the union contract that was entered into 3 years ago. So what I did was I removed merit from all of the non-bargaining units. So what I was saying earlier is that $1 million I'm inheriting as a contractual obligation.
Until when?
I think
and what we're doing is we're adding the 1-day furlough a month, and that is another $1 million we'll take back from that, from the furlough days.
Okay,
so
and right now,
one furlough month, you basically, it's kind of a wash.
If it's one more day gonna save us another $1 million, right?
Yes. One day a month.
No, right now it's 2 days a month, right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, but in your proposed budget, it's 1 day.
That's correct.
That's mean if you add another day, it's gonna be another $1 million saving.
It could, yes. But I did hear that there was, so I part of what I heard was they prefer cuts over additional furlough days.
You prefer what?
What I heard today was look into doing cuts rather than additional furlough days.
But you can do both. Understand that you ask the residents to pay $2 million. That's mean if you can right there and say to the residents, we are in the middle of a pandemic. We do understand you have to pay for your sanitation, but I'm gonna charge you 50% this year, and next year I'm gonna charge you the other 50%, and you add another day, you have a saving right there. That's been the only way to understand that. That's been yes.
At the beginning, that's why I told Miss Teresa to go ahead and talk to the council folks individually, and then with what she has and tell us that this is what I need, because right now, and I understand what she proposing. It's but I think when she talked to, by the time we get to, I know Councilwoman Keys needs some information. I would like some information because I really want to know the folks who are working, how many people that are working, that's essential, whatever the case is. If we're gonna cut programs, you know, because we just have to, you know, what are we doing, et cetera, et cetera. And even with the social service, I'll say, I don't think we're gonna be able to meet next year with the seniors. So you're already doing a saving there until they have a vaccine or something. We're not going to bring seniors back. So I don't know how much that is, a couple 100,000, whatever that is. You know, so if we're not having these programs, there has to be some more cuts or some more savings.
Okay, thank you very much. If there's no other questions and no other question, thank you. And have it. Yes.
My closing remarks, I just want to say I've heard all of you, I've heard what you've said, and I will kind of go back. We will go back. I will talk to you, each of you individually. We will look towards and we'll spend a little bit more time to have a detailed conversation about where the cuts are. We have looked at making cuts in nearly every department that has brought up those numbers. And in that, we took into account what services we still need to and we're obligated to provide as a city. And so I'm looking forward to having those conversations with you with respect to that. What I will have another discussion with everyone with respect to some of the signature event or services that you feel are most important, that define the city of North Miami. And that's what I'm hearing. Things like the Thanksgiving parade define kind of North Miami and how you interact with the community. And for those community engagement activities that we believe are important, we'll talk about how those can be funded through the budget.
Thank you very much and have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.